Thank you, Minister. Order. Senator Smith.
Thank you very much, Mr President. My question is to the Minister for Employment, Senator Abetz. Will the minister update the Senate on efforts to bring former HSU boss and Labor MP Craig Thomson to justice for misusing union members' funds?
The Leader of the Government in the Senate, the Minister for Employment, Senator Abetz.
Mr President, I can update Senator Smith and the Senate that since the chamber last sat, the Victorian County Court has ruled Craig Thomson's criminal conviction for stealing monies from the Health Services Union. The court upheld the guilty finding against Mr Thomson on 13 counts of theft and fined him $25,000. In his appeal against a year-long jail sentence imposed last year, the appeal judge chastised him for the, and I quote, gross abuse of trust involved in his misuse of union funds, and described his, quote, very serious offending as, quote, appalling. The judge described Thomson's behaviour as, quote, self-indulgent, quote, arrogant and undertaken with, quote, no regard for the responsibility imposed in him. Despite this, Mr Shorten, the Labor Party and the Australian Greens have consistently refused to condemn the actions of Labor's former member Craig Thomson. In 2012, Labor and the Greens voted down motions condemning this affront to honest, hard-working Australians. And when asked if he believed Mr Thomson's absurd and dishonest denials, Mr Shorten infamously replied, "Yes, I believe him." That would be the alternate Prime Minister. I can also update the Senate and Senator Smith that the Fair Work Commission is conducting a parallel civil investigation into Mr Thomson's dealings. However, this is yet to be heard by a court. Now, some 8 years or more have elapsed since the conduct in question by Mr Thomson. The Fair Work Commission's investigation took over 3 years just to produce one report and cost taxpayers $4 million. The current system is clearly broken, and it's time to bring wrongdoers to justice.
The question has expired. Senator Smith, a supplementary question.
Thank you very much, Mr President. A supplementary question. Will the minister inform the Senate of the steps the government is taking to protect honest union members from corrupt union officials?
Minister.
Mr President, I can inform Senator Smith that the Coalition has introduced the Fair Work Registered Organisations Amendment Bill. The bill establishes a new penalties regime to ensure that unions are held to the same standards of behaviour as companies and their directors, with the same penalties. Why should a corrupt union official be liable for a fine of only $10,200 when, for the same corrupt conduct, a company director would be liable for 5 years imprisonment or a fine of $320,000. The bill also establishes a Registered Organisations Commission to ensure that breaches of standards applying to union officials are investigated quickly and independently, deterring potential offenders, and to help educate people about improved standards. Clearly, the current system is failing and honest union members need to be protected.
The question has expired. Senator Smith, a final supplementary question.
A final supplementary. Thank you, Mr President. Can the minister advise the Senate of any impediments to the government's efforts to reform trade union governance?
Minister.
Mr President, there is one great obstacle to protecting union members from corrupt union bosses, and that has been the stance of Labor and Green senators in this place. If these reforms are good enough, for union and Labor leaders such as Fair Work Commissioner Ian Cambridge, former National Secretary of the Australian Workers' Union Paul Howes, former Labor Attorney General Robert McClellan, former ACTU President and Labor Minister Martin Ferguson and Simon Crean, why are they not good enough for Mr Shorten, the Australian Labor Party and the Greens? Clearly they have learnt nothing from the interim report of the Hayden Royal Commission, or from Mr Craig Thomson and Mr Michael Williamson. The interjections from those opposite tells you everything the Australian people need to know. They will
Thank
continue
you,
the racket.
Minister. The
We
time
seek
for
to
answering the
stop it.
question has expired.